The Jack Straw Cultural Center presents the official release show to celebrate the new poetry chapbook Rookland by Jesse Minkert, published by Finishing Line Press. The event took place on December 2, 2017 at the Jack Straw Cultural Center in Seattle, Washington. Readers were Swartz, Robert P. Kaye, and Jesse Minkert. Each of the readers appears on a separate video.
Thank you. I don't believe I have ever been paid a more terrific compliment. Now, Mr. Robert P. Kaye his stories have appeared in the Potomac Review, Hobart, Juked, Mr. T.J. Eckelberg Review, Beecher's, and elsewhere. His chapbook, Typewriter for a Superior Alphabet, was published by Alice Blue Press. He facilitates the Works in Progress open mic at Hugo House and is the co-founder of the Seattle Fiction Federation Reading Series. He, and also Mr. Swartz, are tireless promoters of literary events in Seattle. And now, Robert P. Kaye.
Hi. First of all, thanks, Jesse, for inviting me to this. This is great. I think Jesse and I met probably 6-7 years ago at Works in Progress at Hugo House, and then I inherited the custodianship of that event, and Jesse has been reading there for, several centuries, and he always kills it. So
Several moderators.
He has, been through several moderators. He always kills it, and I've got huge respect for his work. And I was delighted to get a 20-minute reading slot because I never get a chance to read whole stories, because whole stories are long. So this is going to be different. This is going to be long. And I was asking myself, what do I need to provide for Jesse's audience? Well, of course, the story that takes place in a strip club parking lot. So this is going to have obscenity and swearing and some objectification of women, none of which I advocate. But I am, as by way of background, I knew the guy who is the main character in this, and this is an incident in his life, and he sort of still haunts me a little bit. So this is called Pickup Ball in the Parking Lot of Heavenly Delights. Late spring, 1992. Dave stepped into the fenced alcove by the dumpster and retrieved Louis from his hiding place. He took a chop with the bat, placing an imaginary shot between first and second, remembering high school when he could put the ball anywhere he wanted. Late night air filled his lungs with the chill of impending dew. A small brown bat sliced through a cloud of insects in the pool of light surrounding the big pole erected in the center of the parking lot. A small bat, hunting long after its brethren had retired for the evening. He would so miss this. The soundproof door to the strip club opened on the chorus of "Give Me Shelter, Rape and Murder just a shot away, which meant either Destiny or Mercedes worked the pole. They bickered over the exclusive rights to the song and its power to extract bills from the PLs in the slobber row. PLs, pathetic losers. The term still made him squirm a little. Promise slipped out the door in her kimono robe and mules clopping down the side of the building. He imagined they'd spent the night together and she was coming out into the kitchen to make pancakes. Funny how most of his fantasies had to do with what might be called domestic bliss. They'd never even had sex, which turned out to be fortunate given the circumstances. Any Romeos wanting to climb the trellis, she said. Give me a sec. Dave had forgotten why he'd come out in the first place, to recon the lot for the guys who felt they were entitled to more than the chap dicks they got from the lap dances. Most bouncers bitched about the hassle of escorting the ladies to their cars. He counted it a fringe benefit. You okay? He could tell she was asking because he'd been sick. The pneumonia that put him in the hospital was an opportunistic infection, the doc said. One of the many he'd get with his T-cells on extended vacation. He might die of chicken pox or a bad cold. That bug that lives in kitty litter might have already taken up residence in his brain, turning it to Swiss cheese. The brochures he found hard to read provided further confirmation that no cure existed for AIDS. No sense waiting around to blow out the candles at the end of the pity party. Yeah, I feel great tonight. We need to get Lolita the hell out of here before she starts a riot, Promise said. I'm back with her in 5. All cool out here? Yeah, Dave said. We're good. He watched Promise's rockin' ass as she walked back to the door, the silk kimono more alluring than any G-string or filmy panties. Nothing ruined naked like working in a skin shop. He hid Louis again, so as not to spoil the surprise, and turned to inventory the usual spots where the lurkers lingered. 3 figures clustered behind the laurel hedge between the parking lot and the gas station, a spot also favored as an outdoor toilet. Dave recognized the 3 ATMs Lolita had been making withdrawals from all night while talking non-stop stripper shit. Oh, my boyfriend got me addicted to coke, ripped me off and gave me a black eye, and now I have no money and a hole in my heart. You have a big dick. All true, except for the part about the big dick. He watched the small brown bat make another pass through the bugs. Chew your food, he said. Don't get fat and slow. He didn't feel sick, not tonight. The heavy padded door opened again. Promise dragged Lolita by the arm half out the door, where she stuck, hanging off the jamb, talking to Spike, the other bouncer, whose real name was George. Inside, Jimmy played Foxy Lady, meaning Treasure boggled gravity with her bolt-on 44s, moving in elliptical synchronization with the guitar licks, hypnotizing the customers into parting with larger bills. Strip clubs remained the last refuge of classic rock and soul, the late shift cranking up the oldies to wring a little more out of the older guys too lonely to go home with their cash. Nostalgia, the best anesthetic for a walletectomy. Dave loved that music too. We got a split, goddammit, Promise jerked Lolita free of the door. Dave's waiting. Promise wore a jean jacket, hair pulled back into a ponytail. A sensible bra confined the considerable rack underneath the flannel skirt. Mall mom jeans concealed the C-section scar she hid with makeup when working. Experienced sexy was still the best sexy. Promise dragged Lolita down the length of the building. Dave stepped out to meet them, offering his arm. Hey, big guy, you might need this. She passed the Louisville Slugger across his back to keep it hidden. Their fingertips brushed as he took the bat, sending a little thrill up his arm. He couldn't help himself. Wait a sec, I forgot something. Lolita started back toward the door, the staccato of her heels bouncing off the stucco. No, you don't, honey. Promise grabbed her wrist, almost jerking her off her heels. Time to go night-night. Lolita staggered back around in her full-length raincoat and big dark sunglasses, a disguise rendered worthless by peroxide Maryland hair flaring in mercury vapor lights. A canvas book bag swung from her elbow with the word read and a bug-eyed picture of somebody named Virginia Woolf, probably a sci-fi fantasy writer with a name like that. Lolita was supposedly gathering material for a novel and paying for some artsy master's degree with stripper money. Dave wondered if he'd have a part in the book. It would be cool to be immemorialized like that. They set out across the blacktop, 3 abreast. Dave always liked the word abreast. It reminded him of high school when you could laugh at shit like that, unaware of disappointments to come. Long before he got the athletic scholarship, before he'd majored in partying and flunked out. God, he'd loved college while it lasted. So, all 3 of them stuck around. Promise looked tired and short on patience. Yep. Dave studied the guys in the bushes who probably thought they were invisible, not realizing the gas station lights silhouetted them like shadow puppets. He wondered how soon she'd quit this life and get a job as a counter clerk at some neighborhood hardware store, all the guys working overtime on crushes. Hey, I just want to talk to those jerks a sec. Lolita bolted to the side, pulling Team Stripper off course, but failing to break Promise's grip. That kind of behavior had its charm, like Stacia not taking off her heels at first, even in the sack, to keep the needle marks between her toes invisible. Sharing those needles had to be why the damn test came back positive, or the unprotected sex. Stacia didn't work at Heavenly Delights anymore. Another flying thing escaped into the night. Lolita jerked free, stumble running toward the bushes. Fuck! Promise ran her down in a few steps, hauling her back. Work with me, honey. I got to get my little girl ready for school in like 3 hours. He knew 2 true things about her. 1, that she had a daughter whose name she never told anyone at the club. 2, that Promise was her real name, her mother having promised she wouldn't get another abortion. I just need to say a few words to these guys about subjugation, Lolita said. Dave didn't know what that meant, but Lolita had meltdown crying fits twice the previous week and broke a mirror in the dressing room, then refused to come out for her set at the pole, for which Leo kept her club fee and ejected her, yelling perk up or pack up because sad was bad for business. Tonight was her first night back. She'd returned as a stripper dynamo. Promise pulled Lolita close. Where's your car, honey? Back in the corner, Lolita said, to make room for the whales, like Leo says. Leo's an idiot, Dave said. All the whales went up the street to the club with the VIP room where the pro basketball players sometimes partied. He offered Lolita his arm, and she took it. They sandwiched her between them, moving in a cloud of powder and sweat, sweet as fresh-cut honeydew, the baseball bat like a collective tail. Maybe if Promise had been a cheerleader when he was sacking quarterbacks and hitting homers, they would have gotten married and both worked at that hardware store. You get better tips when you're ovulating, Lolita said. I have a graph that proves it. Everybody knows that, Promise said. It's not like it isn't scientifically proven that women are smarter than men, Lolita called toward the bushes. Is that why you pathetic losers always have to resort to violence? They'd almost reached her beater Buick when the PLs emerged into the light, coming across the corner to cut them off from retreat. Team Stripper, backs to the car, turned to face Team Stupid. The biggest guy walked the point, a curly-haired Pillsbury doughboy a half-pace back. The skinny, rat-faced guy hung a few steps behind, the one to worry about. Get her keys, Dave said. On it. Promise stuck both hands in the book bag and rummaged. Lolita removed her dark glasses, the shiner like a purple dent in an otherwise perfect face, now visible beneath the smeared makeup in the harsh light. The raincoat fell open on her camisole and low-slung jeans, showing 3 inches of belly. This stopped the 3 men cold. She had that effect on guys. Girl, where are your damn keys? Promise said. Hey, Lolita, said the biggest of the 3, bowl-cut hair making him look like a puffed-up John Denver, 6'3", 210, with actual biceps. You made us some promises. Dave flashed on the doc at the clinic who came out to give him the results of the blood test. He had that same strawberry blonde hair, but a way better cut and a stud earring. You know, this isn't necessarily a death sentence, right? There's a new drug cocktail that suppresses the virus. It's not like the 80s. You can lead an almost normal life if you're careful. Suppress, not cure. The thought of dependence on non-recreational drugs made him sick. David always had trouble swallowing pills. Almost normal sounded like hell. I never promised anything, Lolita said. You kind of did. Pillsbury's voice wobbled. Ratface remained silent, too calm to be inexperienced. Those were word pictures to enhance your enjoyment, Lolita said, all part of the service. I never promised you shit. Check with my lawyer. She jerked her head toward Dave. He had sympathy for PLs in general, knowing better than anyone how naked flesh obliterated good judgment. Hadn't any of them noticed Lolita pinballing between the others all evening, juicing them like oranges? Wasn't everyone a PL at the end of the night? I asked if you did takeout, Pillsbury said. You said to meet you in the parking lot after your shift. That sounded like a promise. Same here, John Denver said. Ratface nodded. Promise rolled her eyes. That's subject to interpretation, Lolita said. I never said what would happen in the parking lot. Right, Dave? Dave smiled, the bat still hidden behind his leg. The drug cocktail was ridiculously expensive, month after month, year after year. You had to commit to clinical trials, show stability, not one of Dave's strong suits. Look, guys, Promise said, this is not worth going to jail or the hospital. Knock their fucking heads off, Dave, Lolita screamed, ripping the book bag away from Promise, still rummaging for keys. She lunged, swinging the bag. Pillsbury and John Denver danced back, nimble for big guys. Ratface smirked. Dave hated that smirk. Hey. Promise hauled Lolita back by a handful of raincoat and locked an arm around her neck, wrenching the bag away and dumping it out on the blacktop. An overstuffed makeup bag, a thick paperback book, a pint of whiskey, a pill bottle that didn't contain pills, and a lot of pens. Fortunately, no big wad of cash. Got him. Dave heard the jingle of the keys and felt glad. Give the girl a break, Promise said. She's been through some shit. No, Lolita corkscrewed free. I don't want your fucking sympathy. I want Dave to fuck them up, and I want to watch. There it was. She'd set the whole thing up. Not that it mattered. Relax, everybody, Dave said. This doesn't have to end horrible. Lolita attempted another lunge, but Promise smothered her in a bear hug from behind, hauling her, kicking to the car. Team Stupid surged forward, and Dave cocked the bat for a double. They fell back. Easy, guys, Dave said. Lolita began to whimper. Andy, the object of her affections, was a pudgy guy with a lot of dark hair, a little like Pillsbury, not someone you'd pick out as a coke dealer. Dave felt for the familiar chip in the heel of the bat with his thumb. It felt normal. We all agreed you can keep the money for the lap dances, John Denver said. You earned that. But I want my tips back, or my money's worth. Ratface snickered, and Dave guessed he wasn't there for the money or sex. He hated that guy. Time for the speech. Look, guys, there's no refunds at strip clubs. Here, the customer is not always right. You can choose to remember this night fondly as a good time and maybe a lesson learned. If you step up, I will break your bones, and you will hate yourselves for being pathetic losers, even worse than you do now. Trust me on this, guys. For a moment, strippers and Romeos alike seemed to consider his wisdom. Then Ratface edged further to Dave's flank. Nobody could say he hadn't offered a fair shake. He took a step forward and punked Lewis's business end against the pavement to herd Ratface back to the center. The solid chip echoed off the side of the building. Echolocation. Batter up. Get her out of here. I'm trying, Promise said. He heard keys in a lock and the scuffle of Lolita stuffed inside. Saw Promise's hand scoop up the makeup bag and the book and the pill bottle, leaving a heap of change and pens and a little package of tissues. And the pint of bourbon, no doubt for him when this was over. Guys, there's nothing left but downside here. Dave slapped the fat end of the bat into his hand. Get in your cars and drive away and never come back, or we play a game of pickup ball. As in, when this is over, you pick up your teeth and your balls. He smiled because that's what the line required, but the heavy dew of sadness overcame him. Sad he'd never get a chance to use that line again, or feel the smack of the fat end of the bat against his palm to punctuate the point. He imagined this as the big game, bottom of the ninth, 1 down, 1 man on, 2 outs, all up to him. He wished Promise worked in a hardware store and he'd taken his uncle's offer to apprentice as a plumber. He'd stop by the store for parts. Ratface edged deeper into peripheral vision. Dave checked the door of the club and the light pole erected in the center of the lot. The little bat seemed to have retired for the evening. Break their fucking heads, Dave, Lolita yelled from the car window as the engine sputtered to life and the transmission thunked into drive. Pillsbury sprinted for his car on the other side of the lot, a Mercedes no less. Dave felt a little bit of a letdown, but then he heard the knife blade lock. He jumped sideways and swung hard at Ratface's arm, but missed. Ratface grinned. He fucking grinned. The car shifted and began to move. He had mixed emotions about the imminent departure of his cheering section, but Ratface skipped across on his other side, knife held low. Any second, one of them would barrel in. Dave knew Team Stupid's playbook backward and forwards, having starred on that squad for years. He wondered if it wouldn't be better to have his .38 with him now instead of stowed under the seat for later when he would drive to the top of the hill overlooking the high school stadium and watch the sun come up, highlighting the blurred lines. It wasn't his high school, but it was close enough. The Buick exited the lot onto the empty arterial with a roar and a bang, and Dave thought, shit, one of them has a gun, but Ratface and John Denver looked equally startled. The Buick belched blue smoke, bald tires squealing, almost colliding with the Mercedes. Batter up. Thank you.
Many thanks to the Jack Straw Cultural Center, Levi Fuller, Laurel Circum, Darwin Alonso, Bonnie Showers, Blue Sparks, and Joan Rabinowitz. Joel Maddox was the engineer and videographer. This series of videos was produced by Joel Maddox and Jesse Minkert at the Jack Straw Cultural Center. Copies of Rookland may be purchased at finishinglinepress.com or on Amazon. This has been a Jack Straw literary event, made possible by the generous support of the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, For Culture, the Washington State Arts Commission, the National Endowment for the Arts, and KUOW-FM. I'm Alyssa Keene.